On February 19, 2013, a maintenance worker at the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles climbed onto the roof to investigate complaints from guests. The water pressure was low. The water itself, some said, had turned dark and tasted strange. He climbed a 10-foot ladder up the side of a 1,000-gallon water tank, looked through an open hatch, and found a body. A young woman, face up in the water, completely naked. Her clothes floating beside her. She had been missing for 19 days, and in that time the guests of the Cecil Hotel had been drinking her, cooking with her, showering in her. Her name was Elisa Lam. She was 21 years old, and what happened to her in those 19 days remains one of the most haunting and misunderstood stories in modern true crime. Before we get to the Cecil Hotel, before the elevator footage that millions of people would watch and obsess over, before the conspiracy theories and the Netflix documentary and the internet sleuths, there was just Elisa. Elisa Lam was born Lam Ho Yi on April 30th, 1991 in Vancouver, British Columbia. Her family had immigrated from Hong Kong and opened a restaurant in Burnaby. She was a student at the University of British Columbia, bright, creative, deeply introspective. But Elisa carried something with her that most people around her didn't fully understand. She had been diagnosed with bipolar 1 disorder and depression, conditions that, when untreated, can cause psychotic episodes involving hallucinations, paranoia, and a complete break from reality. Her prescribed medications included Wellbutrin, Lamictal, Seroquel, and Effexor, a heavy cocktail designed to stabilize her moods. But Elisa had a pattern. She would stop taking her medication, and when she did, the hallucinations would come. Her sister later told investigators that Elisa would hide under her bed for refuge during these episodes. She'd been hospitalized before. In 2010, she started a blog on Blogspot called Ether Fields. In 2011, she moved to Tumblr. Her new blog was called Nouvelle Nouveau. At the top, she pinned a quote from author Chuck Palahniuk. "You're always haunted by the idea you're wasting your life." Her Tumblr became her sanctuary. She posted fashion photography, quotes, reblogs, and deeply personal reflections about her mental health. The writing was raw, unflinching, beautiful. November 4, 2011, she wrote, "Seriously, life, do you think I am built of steel? I am human after all. I am just flesh. My skin can hold only so much together." October 22, 2012. A few good days followed by a week of sleeping. That is the pattern. That is the cycle. And that will repeat again and again. She was 21 years old and already exhausted from fighting her own mind. Late January 2013, Elisa decided to take a solo trip through California. She traveled alone on Amtrak and intercity buses. She visited the San Diego Zoo. She posted photos on social media. She seemed to anyone scrolling through like a young woman on an adventure. On January 26, she arrived in Los Angeles. 2 days later, on January 28th, she checked into the Cecil Hotel near Skid Row. Now let's pause on the Cecil Hotel, because you can't understand this story without understanding the building itself. Built in 1927, the Cecil was once a glamorous destination. By 2013, it had become something else entirely, a 600-room flophouse on the edge of Skid Row, with a reputation for violence, suicide, and death. Serial killer Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, lived there in the 1980s, reportedly returning to the hotel covered in blood after his murders. Austrian serial killer Jack Unterweger stayed there in 1991. Over the decades, multiple guests had jumped to their deaths from the upper floors. The building itself felt cursed, and that was the hotel Elisa Lam walked into as a tourist. She was initially assigned a shared room on the 5th floor, but within 2 days, her roommates complained about her behavior. According to the hotel manager, Elisa was leaving notes for her roommates, saying things like "go home" and "go away," and she'd lock the door, demanding a password before anyone could enter. The hotel moved her to a private room. A few days before she vanished, Elisa attended a live taping of the Conan O'Brien show in Burbank. She was escorted out by security for disruptive behavior. She had also written the host a long, rambling letter. Something was unraveling. Elisa was supposed to check out of the Cecil on January 31 and head north to Santa Cruz. But that morning, January 31, she didn't call her parents. This was unusual. She had been in daily contact with them throughout her entire trip, every single day. And then, silence. Her parents called the Los Angeles Police Department. Then they flew to LA themselves to help search. Hotel staff who saw Elisa that day said she was alone. Outside the hotel, one person remembered seeing her. The manager of a bookstore nearby called the Last Bookstore. She later told CNN that Elisa was outgoing, very lively, very friendly. She was buying gifts to take home to her family. She was talking about whether the books she picked would be too heavy to carry while traveling. That was January 31, the last confirmed sighting of Elisa Lam alive. Police searched the hotel. They went through her room. Her wallet, ID, and laptop were still there. They brought in dogs. The dogs tracked her scent through the hotel, up toward the roof, to a window near the fire escape, and then the trail went cold. They searched the rooftop, but no one checked inside the water tanks. A week passed. On February 6th, the lap went public. Flyers with Elisa's face were posted across the neighborhood and online. The media picked up the story. And then, on February 13, the LAPT did something that would turn this missing person case into a global obsession. They released the elevator footage. This video, if you've seen it, you don't forget it. 2.5 minutes of security footage from inside one of the Cecil Hotel's elevators, timestamped January 31, 2013. Elisa Lam, alone, wearing a red hoodie and black shorts. Let me walk you through what happens, because everything about it feels wrong. Narrate in sync with footage. She enters the elevator. Immediately, she presses multiple buttons, not just the floor, but what looks like every button on the panel. The doors don't close. She peers out into the hallway, as if looking for someone. She steps back into the elevator, presses herself against the corner of the wall. She steps out into the hallway. The doors remain open. She waves her hands, almost like she's having a conversation with someone who isn't there. She moves her arms in strange, exaggerated gestures. At one point, she appears to count on her fingers. She steps back into the elevator. The door still won't close. She leaves again, walking out of frame. And then after she's gone, the elevator doors finally close, as if whatever was keeping them open just left. The video went viral. 3 million views in China alone in the first 10 days. Dozens of YouTube re-uploads, millions of theories. Some said she was playing the Korean elevator game, a supposed ritual where pressing buttons in a specific pattern opens a portal to another dimension. Others insisted the footage was tampered with, slowed down, edited, minutes removed. Some saw a ghost, some saw a killer. But there was another explanation, one grounded in medical reality, and far more tragic. Elisa had bipolar 1 disorder, and people in the middle of a severe manic or psychotic episode often experience paranoid delusions, the feeling that someone is chasing them, watching them, hunting them, hallucinations, disorganized behavior, the hand gestures, the hiding, the talking to no one. These are textbook signs of a psychotic break. She wasn't being chased by a ghost. She was being chased by her own mind. While Elisa was still missing, guests at the Cecil Hotel started complaining. Low water pressure, water that looked black, water that tasted strange, metallic, almost. For 19 days, the hotel had been using water from the rooftop tanks to supply the guest rooms, the kitchen, the coffee shop. On the morning of February 19, 2013, a maintenance worker named Santiago Lopez went to the roof to investigate. He climbed a 10-foot ladder up one of the 4 1,000-gallon tanks, massive metal cylinders, each 4 feet wide and 8 feet tall, propped up on concrete blocks. He saw that the hatch was open. He looked inside, and there, floating face up, Just 12 inches from the top of the tank was the body of Elisa Lam. She was completely naked. Her clothes, the same red hoodie and black shorts from the elevator footage, were floating in the water alongside her. Her watch, her room key, all in the tank. The tank had to be drained and physically cut open to recover her body. The maintenance hatch was too small for the equipment needed. On February 21, the Los Angeles County coroner issued a preliminary finding: accidental drowning. The full autopsy report, released in June, confirmed there was no evidence of physical trauma, no sexual assault, no signs of a struggle, no recreational drugs in her system. A trace amount of alcohol, about 0.02%, but nothing else. What the toxicology did show was something crucial. The levels of her prescription bipolar medications in her system were dangerously low. She had either stopped taking them or significantly underdosed in the days before her death. The coroner listed bipolar disorder as a significant contributing factor. Detective Wallace Tennell, the lead investigator, later said in a deposition, "My opinion is that she fell off her medication, and in her state, she happened to find her way onto the roof, got into the tank of water. He and his partner had tried to figure out how someone else could have put her in there, how an attacker could have carried a body onto the roof, up a 10-foot ladder, removed the heavy tank lid, and done it all without leaving a single fingerprint or trace of DNA. It's difficult for someone to have been able to do that and not leave prints, not leave DNA or anything like that," Tennell said. "So she climbed in on her own." The coroner closed the case, accidental drowning, but the questions never fully died. How did a 21-year-old woman, in the grip of a psychotic episode, get onto the roof of the Cecil Hotel? The rooftop was supposed to be secure. The interior staircase had a locked door with a working alarm. If anyone forced it open, staff should have been alerted. There were also fire escapes on the side of the building. One of them near the window where the police dogs lost her. Scent, so she likely climbed the fire escape, accessible, unalarmed, unseen. Then what? She would have had to climb onto the water tank platform, climb a 10-foot ladder, open a heavy metal lid, which the maintenance work later confirmed was already open when he found her, and then lower herself into the water. At some point, she removed her clothes. Why? A known symptom of severe bipolar mania is disrobing, a loss of normal social inhibitions combined with sensory overload. She may have felt overheated. She may have been acting on delusional beliefs. We'll never know. And then there's the Tumblr. After Elisa was already dead, after February 1, posts continued appearing on her blog, Nouvelle Nouveau. This sparked endless conspiracy theories. How was a dead woman still posting? The answer, it turns out, is mundane. Tumblr has a queue feature that allows users to schedule posts in advance. Elisa had queued up content before she died, and the platform published it automatically. Her phone, which was never found, may have been stolen, and someone may have accessed her account, or it was simply the queue. But the posts themselves, fashion reblogs, movie stills, nothing unusual, don't point to foul play. The tragedy of Elisa Lam is simpler and sadder than any conspiracy theory. She was a young woman living with a severe mental illness. She went off her medication. She experienced a psychotic episode in one of the most notorious buildings in America. And in her confusion, she climbed into a water tank and couldn't get out. The internet turned Elisa Lam into a mystery, a ghost story, a horror movie. But before the elevator footage, before the Cecil Hotel, before any of it, she was a writer, a young woman who could articulate what it felt like to live inside a mind that sometimes turned against her. She wrote to strangers on the internet who were struggling. You say you love life, and that means you have to live it in real life. It takes a tremendous amount of energy to drag yourself out of this ditch. You don't have to do it all at once. There will be days where the most you can do is wake up. And that is a perfectly legit accomplishment. She wrote about her own pain with brutal honesty. Everyone has moved on with their lives, and I'm stuck in this waiting room, being a professional depressed person and trying to get better. But get better from what exactly? What am I supposed to do now? 10 days before she died, she posted this. I'm not a professional depressed person. I am so much more than that. On January 29, 2 days before she vanished, she wrote, my laptop screen is brighter than my future. Elisa Lam was 21 years old. She was a daughter, a sister, a student, a writer, and she was a human being whose death was not a mystery to be solved, but a tragedy to be understood. In 2015, her parents' wrongful death lawsuit against the Cecil Hotel was dismissed. The courts ruled that the hotel could not have reasonably foreseen that a guest would climb into a water tank. The building still stands, now rebranded, refurbished, but the history remains, and somewhere online her Tumblr is still there. Still live, still nouvelle nouveau. If you visit it, you won't find answers to the mystery. You'll find something more important. The voice of a young woman who deserved to be heard for what she said when she was alive. If Elisa's story touched you, please subscribe so you don't miss on the next cases. Every subscription helps stories like this continue to be told to those who need to hear them. Thank you for watching until the end. See you in the next case.